Hello, everyone, and welcome to the top 8 of this first ever KARDS Open. My name is Olikrummi, also known as Olikrummi. Both are pretty hard to pronounce, so you can call me Ollie. With me is Blue Blast, one of our top players and expert. How are things going today, Blue?
Hey, things are going great, Ollie. I'm excited to be here to watch these top 8 players see what they can do. We started with a pool of over 200 players. They played 8 rounds of Swiss, put their blood, sweat, and tears into this game, and now they are battling it out for their share of $1,000 prize pool.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of how this top 8 plays out. We see some familiar names there, names we've seen at the top of the ladder, previous season winners, previous top 8 Officer Club tournament winners. But we also see some names there that I've never seen before. Not on the ladder or anywhere else. Dog 34 has been consistently on top of the ladder. Darkness, obviously, past 2 top 8 OC tournaments. Ari Big Ben, the same. But Terror DE, UFC, Gaga 099, Lucky Spike, Big Daddy Nerf, those are all unknowns for me.
Yeah, absolutely. These are kind of the new challengers here to the cards tournament scene. And of course, like you said, we have the OGs, Darkness, Ari, of course, Terra D, one of the team members on the German Nations Cup.
Ah,
Um, but yeah, so I'm really excited to see what these kind of up and coming new players can do to maybe topple over some of the reigning champions here.
yeah, and I'm also just I'm happy to see an increase in the player pool in these high level tournaments and high level broadcasts. I always like seeing new players come in and challenge the old guard, just like Hubblebub did in the last top 8 OC championship, taking you on in the finals. um it entertains me, and I'm super happy with the reception that this cards open has gotten the first go around, with over 200 participants and more people wanting to compete. But we actually had to close the signups, really, because there were much more people that wanted to play than we expected. So we kind of capped the format. So I can't wait for the next cards open. Given how well this has gone, we will do this again. I can guarantee you that.
Hey, that's great to hear, man. Yeah. I yeah, again, I'm and as
Well, Blue just had some technical issues there. Just dropped out a little bit. For those that are interested, we'll talk through the decks. So each player in this tournament brings 3 decks to the table. Then, before they face off in a best of 3, they each take turns banning 1 deck from their opponent. So here we see Big Daddy Nerf's decks that he's bringing to the table. He's bringing a USA and Britain deck, a Britain and USA deck, and then had a Germany USA deck as well, but that has since been banned by Darkness. Let's take a quick look at the Darkness deck list before we go into details for these decks. Darkness is bringing a USA Britain and a Britain USA, as well as a Germany USA. So these are the same decks in terms of nations, but Big Daddy Nerf decided to ban Britain against Darkness. So what do you think of these bans, and what do you see from these decks, Blue?
am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. The power like shut off and like right back on in my house. Okay. Um, so yes, so looking at Darkness's decks here. So the USA and Brit is looking to be kind of your standard issue ramp deck.
Oh, looks like Blue's having some issues there. Wonder if all the new studio lights that he put in for this broadcast is drawing too much power from his computer. Who knows? I don't. Um, but what he's going into there is that Darkness's USA deck looks to be a pretty standard ramp deck, and his Germany deck is going to be a fast Germany deck, probably featuring a fast Heinz as well. While we're waiting for Blue to get back here, I'm gonna just bring up the deck list for myself and start looking through them. Um, yep, here we got the USA deck. It's pretty basic. Running a Jasco, a few good men, air defense, a P40. That P40 really, really tough to deal with if you can't get it off the table immediately. Are you back, Blue? No. Okay. All right, we'll keep going. That P40, of course, increases operating costs for all units that your opponent plays by 2. So if you're facing any type of aggro deck, any type of token deck that requires the opponent to maneuver a large number of units, that P40 will absolutely decimate that plan. After that, he's running the 101st Airborne, obviously a really good unit, strategic bombing, high altitude bombing, seaborne invasion, strategic planning, the Pershing. And then over on the British side, some commandos, number 1 commandos, 2 of those, Blackwatch, 2 of those, as well as We Can Do It, Grenadier Guards, Corsair, Avenger, Carpet Bombing, Flying Fortress, war machines, special deliveries, war bonds, and then the East Surrey regiments. So, like Blue was talking about, this is a fairly kind of standard ramp deck. There's nothing really too surprising in here. Um, he's really taking those high value units from each one of those nations and then supplementing them with those ramp orders. Now, if we look at his other deck, which has not been banned, which is his Germany deck, then it is your classic Fast Heinz, Adler Command Vehicle, Nashib deck. Um, it does run quite a bit of small units, but it looks like he is also running a couple of larger units looking at it. No, I guess the only difference here is he's running the 15 centimeter canone and the Comet together, which combos really, really well if you manage to kind of whittle down your opponent's HP in the early game, but can't quite finish him off. Getting out that autocannon and the Comet in the same turn means you'll trigger that 2 damage, and you can continue doing that turn after turn with the Comet. And now if we go over to his opponent, which is Big Daddy Nerf, and look at the decks that he's going to be bringing. So Darkness choosing to ban his Germany deck, which is a very similar one to what Darkness was bringing. The Fast Heinz, Adler Command Vehicle, and this is kind of the deck that we've been seeing dominating the ladder, or at least in a way being the most efficient deck that you can play on the ladder. It wins your games the fastest it can, and it kind of it doesn't leave your opponent a lot of room to make a comeback if you get the draws. So I think it's actually pretty smart from Darkness to ban this deck, because this is probably the only deck that can really deal with his Germany deck if he gets the draws. So if he gets the correct draws up against either the USA or the Britain decks from Big Daddy Nerf, he's going to be able to end the game before Big Daddy Nerf really gets going. But Big Daddy Nerf is not going to have one of those decks himself to take that win back against Darkness. Now, if we look over to his USA deck, again, very similar things. You know, the Jasco, the Few Good Men, Air Defense, the P40. The only changes I see here is that he seems to be running no Surrey regiments. No, there he is. He is running it. He's running an extra We Can Do It. And he's not running as much ramp. So he's actually only running the 4 war machines for ramping, and then replacing the war bonds with We Can Do It, it looks like. Opting for that. Looks like it's a pretty strong deck. It's got the RAAF Lightnings there for some retreat, high altitude bombing, seaborne invasion, strategic bombing, a lot of board control in there. It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, especially if it goes up against another USA deck that goes deeper into the ramp side of things. It's going to be really interesting to see if Big Daddy Nerf is able to take control of the game in the early and middle part of it before the additional ramp cards for his opponent start really kind of making the difference. And now, finally, while we wait for Blue, whose power completely went out of his house, let's review the Britain deck for Big Daddy Nerf here. This one is looking like a commando deck, at least to a large extent. Yep. He is running the Cup of Teas. He's running the Convoys, 3 of the number 10 commandos, 3 of the Honeys, 2 Night Raids, the Crusader. So this is kind of your run-of-the-mill ramp up your health and ramp up your pings combo officer commando deck that we've been seeing run on the ladder for well, ever since kind of Theaters of War came out. This deck has been pretty popular. So yeah, those are pretty much the decks that these guys are going to be bringing into these matches. Let me check if we are back with Blue. It doesn't look like it, but if we take a look at the bracket, Big Daddy Nerf there facing off against Darkness. Dogue 34 will then be facing off against Lucky Spike there. Ari Big Ben against Gaga 0922, and then UFC versus Terror DE. Um, Now, as much as I would love to wait for Blue, I think we should just start the first game, and then he can come in and really take us over the line there. Now, let's see what these guys bring over into the first game. Big Daddy Nerf there versus Darkness, and it's going to be USA versus USA. So, exactly the stuff that I was talking about before the matches started, we're going to be seeing here. Which one of these guys is going to take the victory? And I think it's going to come down to, is Big Daddy Nerf, wow, what a hand for him. He got the 2 honeys in there. That could help him a lot in keeping his HP total really high up. Plus the Jasko there. Choosing not to play the Jasko turn 1, though, which I guess makes sense. I wonder if we're going to see him playing the War Machine here. Nope. Choosing to play the honey instead. I think that makes sense. He doesn't have more ramp cards than just the War Productions. British cards being played on both sides. He got that other honey, and he's got the 2 special deliveries. He definitely didn't want to draw that other special delivery right away. He wanted to be able to play that without discarding the other one. Not a lot of stuff to do here for Darkness. I guess he could move that commando up to kind of put some pressure. Obviously, that commando, number 1 commando, if it deals combat damage to any unit, that unit dies. So I'm guessing we'll see him use a few good men. Interesting options here. I'd probably be looking at the P40, giving him a good turn to play next turn, and opting for the pressure as well. Big Daddy Nerf doesn't have a whole lot to do here. Probably just wants to War Machine and pass. P40 coming out, making it pretty hard for Big Daddy to deliver some units onto the board now. But wow, getting that 3rd honey out before the special delivery, he's gonna heal so much. That is gonna be a ton of health for Big Daddy Nerf there, and he pulled another special delivery, meaning that he can play that the turn after next. Darkness, however, opting to just go straight for the ramp. And this is exactly what we were talking about. Is Big Daddy Nerf gonna get his HP total and his control of the game in the early to middle part of it to a point where Darkness won't be able to come back with the additional credits that he's gonna have? And I think that's going to be a really interesting question to see how that plays out here. Darkness doesn't have a ton of stuff to do here. No, Big Daddy Nerf, sorry. He could have carpet bombed, but not a ton of value in that, really. Opting to go for the draw, I think that makes sense. He has 2 M26 Pershings in his hands, which is absolutely crazy, and his HP total on turn 7 or 6 is 46. But strategic bombing, great pull there for Darkness, absolutely decimating that back line of Big Daddy Nerf, removing all the honeys, and now pretty much all of the self-healing for Big Daddy Nerf is gone. Welcome back, Blue.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, we're having power outages here, so we'll just have to roll with it.
We'll roll with it. We'll roll with it. It's fine. But as you join us, we're kind of still a little bit of early stages of this game. Big Daddy Nerf obviously has bumped his HP total quite a bit by getting those 3 honeys out early and 2 of his special deliveries played. But it seems like Darkness is in a pretty okay spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, this looks great. Still for Darkness. The thing with the ramp versus ramp matchup, having a high life total really doesn't matter too much. It's more about getting those really satisfying value trades, holding back your Avengers and your B-17 heavy armor bombers to kind of towards the very end and just outvalue kill your opponent. Although what is a little scary for Darkness is the double Pershing in Big Daddy Nerf's hand.
Yeah, He both has the double Pershing, and when I was going through the deck list, he's not running as much ramp as Darkness. So Darkness has, I think, 3 additional ramp cards to Big Daddy Nerf. So for me, it's really the question of, does replacing those ramp cards with value units play out for Big Daddy Nerf? And with that P40 on the field, it's really, really difficult for him to get any type of traction going against Darkness right now.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm just looking at Big Daddy's deck list, and it looks very very similar to the ramp deck that I ran in the last Officer Club top 8 tournament, where it's not running War Machine. It's running basically we can do it over War Machine, and it's running. Or sorry, we can do it over War Bonds. It's running 4 War Machine, the 4 special deliveries with the honeys for the life gain combo. And then just like a few early game guards with the Easter Ray Regiment and something like the Wildcat and the Jazzco to kind of hold back the aggressive decks. Yeah, so I love this version of the deck versus more of like the all-in ramp style where you're running War Bonds, War Machine, and so I don't know. I'm giving the edge out here to Big Daddy Nerf, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think those Pershings in his hand could be pretty significant here. He also has the We Can Do It to kind of gain back that health, help him out a little bit, not lose it just next turn right away. Opting to push the P40 back, I like that. Interesting to note, however, that when you retreat the P40, its effect applies to the unit that retreats it before it goes back into the hand. So you see that our AAF Lightning, it has 4 operation costs for Big Daddy Nerf.
That's right. Yeah. So it seems to be the deploy effects happen at the same time. I'm guessing that for the P40 is a deployment effect and also the retreat. So they must just happen simultaneously.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think, what Darkness wants to do here. I think he wants to get another unit up into the front line if he can. No, opting to just leave the Pershing. Obviously, he doesn't know that there's another Pershing in Big Daddy Nerf's hands, but that could start getting a little bit scary. And that additional damage that he took on the B-17 makes it much more valuable for Big Daddy to carpet bomb here.
Yeah, I mean, carpet bomb's okay. It's sort of like a 1-for-1 trade, so to speak, because it doesn't kill anything but the B-17. And I think Darkness is okay with not taking front line here because the even though it's a very scary big unit, the 5 operation cost because the P40 gave it +2 makes it so if Big Daddy wants to attack with it, he's going to be using 10 credits. So basically his whole turn. And that way, if he does that, he can't really do anything else on his turn.
Yeah, I also totally forgot that Darkness does have the Seaborn Invasion in his hand. And I think that also means that he doesn't have to worry about that Pershing really taking the front line, because he's able to push it back whenever he wants.
Oh wow, We Can Do It off the top is huge here. It takes the B-17 out of carpet bomb range. Although he could just do Seaborn and he'd have 6 credits left over.
Yeah,
then he can We Can Do It. Oh yeah.
That is a huge value. We could do it. I wonder if he moves the Easter Ray Regiment forward as well. And just like that, it's really, really difficult for Big Daddy Nerf to do anything with that Pershing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way Seaborn Invasion worked is it pushed the Pershing directly back, which has now separated his guard unit from his HQ. So now his HQ is vulnerable.
So tough spot here for Big Daddy Nerf, and really with that, an excellent play by Darkness last turn, because look, even if Big Daddy Nerf decides to double carpet bomb two rounds in a row, he's only going to kill 2 targets. He's only gonna kill the B-17, and what's that unit called? It's like 330th or something. The fully repairs. It's one of the
Oh,
Seaborn Division units.
the 4-4. You mean the 4-4 for 3?
No, the 3-3 that fully repairs.
Oh, the 3-3. Yeah. Don't remember the name of the card. I remember what it does though.
Yes, same here. Um, all right. I mean, Big Daddy is getting a little bit of board pressure, a little bit of people, a little bit of units down on the board, but still really in a struggling position.
Yeah, and again, this is why I run We Can Do It. It's so effective. So effective in countering Carpet Bomb for 5 credits, plus drawing a card to replace itself and giving your HQ a nice little HP buff. Really efficient card for what it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the P40 also just really constricting his resources here.
Yeah, that P40 has been on the field since turn 4, right? It has not, like, apart from that one turn where he retreated it and it came right back in, it's been there the entire game. Here we see the Carpet Bomb coming out, but nothing else to do really that turn for Big Daddy Nerf.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you know, Big Daddy Nerf, his hand is just all gas. I mean, it's all power plays. You look at, he has the Corsair, he has the Avenger, he has the B-17, he has another Carpet and another Pershing. Whereas Darkness is a little bit more light on threats. He did top deck a Pershing. He does have Carpet Bomb. He does have one Corsair, but the double Issa Rae and the special delivery is not really what he wants to pad out his hand with right now. Those are not, they're not really great in a mirror matchup. They're really in there to help stem the bleeding from the aggressive decks.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, there's still high altitude bombing. There's another B-17 for Big Daddy Nerf, so he does have, yeah, and there he finds it.
Oh
High
wow,
altitude bombing.
top decked.
Now the question is he going to be as lucky with a random destruction effect as you are, Blue?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, high altitude bombing is my favorite card from the Theaters of War expansion. Um, it's excellent. I mean, it's more RNG, but that kind of adds to the excitement of the game, right?
I mean, that was not bad for Big Daddy Nerf at all. I mean, he definitely wanted that Corsair to be one of the targets destroyed, just to get around that destruction effect. But now we're starting to see the tides shift a little bit, right? Darkness's credit total is getting up to 16. Big Daddy Nerf is not really finding. He doesn't have a lot more ramp cards to go a lot higher, so he doesn't have any more heal either. And keep in mind, if he would not have gotten those extra 24 HP from those honeys at the beginning, he would be dead right now.
That's right. And oh wow, strategic planning off the top. That card looks familiar.
I'm really excited to start seeing secret planning being run or strategic planning being run more often. Now I'm just waiting for the patriotic zeals to make it into all the decks.
Yeah, you know, I should try to figure out a cool patriotic zeal deck, because it's 3 credits cheaper than strategic planning, and sometimes you only need above one big unit, right?
Yep. And like, you can have 3 cards in your deck that, you know, double attack and defense. I think that's pretty good. Wait, actually, you could run it. You could run Patriotic Zeal and Rule Britannia together. So you could run a Britain deck and.
Oh yeah. Wow, yeah, you can make just some humongous units, right?
Yeah, you can even pull some ramp cards over from US. You could run like the We Can Do It's, the War Bonds and the War Productions or War Machines. It could be interesting. as we see the P40 continue to choke out Big Daddy Nerf's resources, as it has the entire game.
Yeah,
Ooh.
absolutely. And I think the strategic planning is lethal here. 8,
Yeah.
16, 20, 22. Yep, that's GG. I think that was
Yeah.
exactly lethal with the strategic planning.
Yeah, it looks like it. That was an excellent game by Darkness. It kind of played out in a similar way that I expected. Unfortunately for Big Daddy Nerf, he wasn't really able to, fully get control of the game while he had the upper hand. So slowly but surely, it kind of slipped away from him a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely slipped away. And I don't know, this makes me think that in the mirror matchup of two, very value dependent ramp decks, that I think the deck that can go higher in the credit slot is ultimately going to be the winner.
Yeah,
Especially if you
yeah,
have cards out like the P40, which just it kind of decimates your opponent's economy. So really,
yeah. And I mean that P40 actually came from A Few Good Men, and that he played. I think it was turn 3. He played the A Few Good Men, and it gave him that P40. So he had a perfect turn 4, and I think ultimately that probably won him the game, because if you play that game back
Mhm.
and you take that P40 out of it and you give Big Daddy Nerf the 44 HP that he had, and the healing machine out and all that stuff, and he doesn't have to deal with it, I think he can do a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Only thing that's better than a turn 4 is one on turn 3 if you have a War Machine on turn 2.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
really, really, really powerful.
I think, yeah, let's just go for the next match.
Yeah.
We'll take this opportunity to give a huge shout out to 983, who are working with us on this tournament. They are handling all the production and all the logistics. So they have been a great partner so far. We definitely recommend you check them out if you can for all their future tournaments, cards related or not. This time around, Big Daddy Nerf bringing his US deck again, and Darkness bringing his Germany deck. Darkness finding some really, really high value units in his opening hand there. Both of those Panzer 1-drops, super good for him.
Yeah, I mean it's a good opening. The only thing that you're really missing is something like a 109th Engineers. That
Yeah,
just catapults your start into just like warp speed, because the amount of big units you can get out in the early game is it's very overwhelming.
yeah. Now he's got the draw machine going as well, with that infantry unit in the backline, but the guard unit, Easterly Regiment coming out from Big Daddy Nerf, slowing him down a little bit. But he already has the Alliance in hand, and he just picked up the Adler command vehicle, which is going to be pretty interesting, seeing as how many units he has on the board right now. Um, that's going to be
And this is a great
huge.
this is a great play, holding back the Panzer 35 Ts, and waiting for Alliance next turn and just running them in there as 2 4-4s with 0 operation cost. If he had moved one or two of them up, more than likely it would have one of them would have gotten eaten for free by the Issa Rae. But now since he waited, he gets like maximum value.
Yep, and he gets to get rid of that honey as well, and pulls another alliance. Wow. So he's going to be able to play that other alliance, and I don't think there's anything really that Big Daddy Nerf can do to deal with it. I mean, he's probably going to retreat the Adler command vehicle, I would expect, if he retreats anything.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough spot. That's just the power of this deck and why it's been so dominant all of last season. And I've put in a lot of time with this deck as well. It got me to my finish last month at rank 4, and if you can get the right combination of Adler, 35 Ts, and Alliance, and 109th, it is practically unstoppable.
Yeah. I mean, this turn, if he wants, he's able to play out 2 tanks. He's able to play out the Panzer 3A. He's able to play out the Arado and an Alliance and attack with 3 units. I think that just already puts his,
Well,
board pressure off the charts.
I think he has lethal here though. If he does the second alliance, each of the 35 Ts is 6 plus 5. From the Panzer is 11 plus 5. Oh, not quite yet.
Yeah, I think
No,
Jasko is
6,
keeping it.
12, and 5. Oh, that's right with the Jasko. Yeah, 17.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, not quite. If the Jasko was not there, it would have been lethal with the 5/5 Adler command vehicle getting in there.
Yeah. Big guard unit coming out, but it's not enough. It's not going to be enough, and this is exactly why this deck is so powerful, right? If you get the correct cards in hand, you are able to win the game faster than pretty much any deck in the game can deal with. And we actually talked about this during the AMA when we were asked about the balance for Germany. And there I was highlighting, it's going to be really difficult to change this about Germany without kind of removing a lot of the thing that makes Germany from the game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is ways to counter it. Like you mentioned in the AMA, there is decks and precautions you can take to counter Germans. Like a lot of the early guards, things like Awoken Giant. But it leaves you open and kind of vulnerable if you're laddering to everything else, because Awoken Giant's kind of really only good in that German matchup, whereas against any other kind of mid-range or control deck, it's not. So it is kind of a give and take there. But I love Germany. I don't want it to go anywhere. So
Yeah,
it's
well,
the games are a lot of.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I think it's one of those things where, it can be really demoralizing to play against when the opponent gets the perfect hand. All of a sudden you're like turn 3 or 4, you have your cards in hand, and then you're dead, right? And I completely understand how that really, really sucks. But as you say, this is probably something that is easier to play against in a tournament setting where you kind of know what decks are being brought and what the player is playing, rather than in the ladder. And which is why I'm really confused as to why didn't Big Daddy Nerf ban the German deck from Darkness? Why would he ban his British deck um, over the German deck? Because we know that both his British
Yeah.
deck and his US deck is going to struggle with the German deck. So that might be like a little bit of inexperience in the tournament setting coming in there.
Yeah, I think you may be right about that. It's kind of hard not to just ban the best deck in the game right now from your opponent. You know what I mean? And yeah, especially like you said, with the lineup that he chose, Ramp struggles against any aggro, and especially the German kind of Fast Heinz Adler Alliance aggro, really struggles. So yeah, and again, yeah, the whole tournament meta, it's such a different kind of unique feel from overall competitive ladder. There's a lot more to take into account, as in trying to guess what decks your opponent is going to bring, and just the decks overall are very different. And like you said, you can prepare for certain decks going into a tournament that you can't really on ladder, because ladder is very unpredictable, so
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm looking forward to see if Darkness can just take this all the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if production is ready, I think we're ready to jump into the next matchup. Yeah. Well, we've only seen one of these matches, and if we look at the bracket update there, so is this going to be the only match that we see from the round of 8? Okay. Well, If we look at the bracket update there, we see the featured match from the top 8 was Big Daddy Nerf versus Darkness. Darkness took that home 2-0. But if we look at the rest of the bracket, it is between Doge 34 and Lucky Spike. That went 2-1. Doge 34 actually losing against Lucky Spike. And Lucky Spike is a name that I haven't seen as much on the ladder as Doge 34. So a little bit of upset there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting, really exciting. And I'm looking, it looks like Ari Big Ben, uh, the June Officer Club champion, um, multiple season winner, got taken down by the newcomer,
Yeah.
uh, Gagao 922.
And Terror DE, the Nations Cup representative for Germany, making it past UFC as well. This means that our quarter or semifinals is going to be Lucky Spike versus Darkness, and then
Yeah.
Gaga 0922 against Terra D. So we're going to see really only like one tournament veteran making it into the quarters here. I'm
Wow.
really
Yeah.
curious.
That.
Like I'm really curious about those
Yeah. No.
games.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, with that, before we go into the semifinals, we're going to go for a quick break, but we'll come back with all the semifinal and final action right after, well, I guess this hold screen. Welcome back to this first ever Cards Open broadcast. My name is Oliver Steinarsson, also known as Olikrummi, and with me is Blue Blast. We're about to head into the semifinals. Blue Blast, what do you think we're going to see in these semifinals?
Well, we're going to see Lucky Spike versus Darkness here.